The Washington Commanders are coming off 8-1 season and arguably the toughest division in football. Looking into the 2023 season, they've made some changes, bringing in Eric Bieniemy as offensive coordinator to run the show. But who's going to be the quarterback? It's a pivotal year for the Commanders. We got David Harrison from Locked On Commanders talking all thing Washington Commanders today. Let's get into this. David, thank you for taking the time to join us today, my man. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. I appreciate the invitation for having me on.
No problem. No problem. So let's just get into this real quick, man. So Commanders last year, 8-1, tough division. My goodness.
Yeah.
It arguably the toughest in football. I don't see that changing this year. The one question that a lot of people have is at the quarterback position. So I'll just open it up. Is Sam Howell the guy to get the Commanders to the next step?
Whether or not he's the guy to get them to the next step is to be determined. But is he? If you're asking me if he's the guy who's going to get the opportunity to take them to that next step, then yes, I absolutely, think he is. I think the Commanders are still kind of maintaining this mystique of it's a quarterback competition between he and Jacoby Brissett. But head coach Ron Rivera has been very clear from the jump that Sam was going to get that first opportunity to win that job, and what that has looked like through OTAs and their mandatory minicamp is that Sam Howell is getting all the first team reps. Jacoby Brissett's getting all the second team reps. There's no flip-flopping. There's no back and forth. It's all Sam Howell with the first team, all Jacoby with the second team. And basically, as long as Sam Howell doesn't do anything to rattle the confidence of the coaching staff or to show Eric Bieniemy and Ron Rivera that he's not the best quarterback to lead this team this season, he's going to be the starting quarterback. And, again, I don't see anything coming from Sam to convince them otherwise. So, yeah, Sam Howell is going to be the quarterback of the Washington Commanders this season, at least to begin the season. We'll see how things go. We've seen it, how many times in NFL history where one guy starts the season and 4 or 5 weeks in, another guy comes in. And sometimes 4 or 5 weeks later, another guy comes in, or the guy from before comes back in. Who knows? Things can get crazy. But, yeah, Sam Howell, I think, is going to be your QB1 in Washington this year.
Gotcha. Stepping on top of that, Eric Bieniemy coming into the fold. A lot of hype surrounding him and what the job that he did in Kansas City. How has he come in and changed anything? If he has, I'm sure that he probably has, but how has he come in and kind of changed the culture of the offense there?
Man, EB's great. I'll tell you what, Eric Bieniemy is a guy. I never met him before he arrived to Washington, but a good buddy of mine, Herbie Teope, the Kansas City Star. He's actually now retired and going out on the World Series, a poker tour, and trying to make his poker dreams a reality. Big good luck to Herbie. He's a great dude. But he gave me all kinds of primer on him, man. He said, Eric Bieniemy, he's a direct guy. He's a blunt guy. He's going to tell you how it is. He's not going to sugarcoat anything. He's not going to dance around any questions. And then on the practice field, he's going to sound like a drill sergeant, and Herbie's got an Army background. I have an Army background. So that kind of thing it kind of speaks to guys like him and I. And when you get on the practice field, I mean, if you don't know where Eric Bieniemy is on the practice field, you're going to find out as soon as they start running through team drills, because he's going to make himself known. But it's not in a look at me kind of way. It's not in a look at me upstage my players kind of way. It's in a mentoring, leading, teaching kind of way. And to a man, so far, the players are absolutely taking to it. They absolutely enjoy it. They love it. They love how direct he is. And it's very simple. He's got a mission, and that mission is to get this offense to be better than they were last year, the best that they can be this year, while continuing to grow them as individual players. And that's what he is setting out to do with his position coaches and his players. And so far, not only do they love it, they're asking for more of it.
It's a good sign. And a lot of times, look, I know a lot of guys that played. I played in college, but all the NFL guys that I talk to is, and I'm sure you can attest to this, just be honest with me. Just tell me where I stand. Let me know where I stand. And if anything that I know about Eric Bieniemy, he's going to tell you. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is, he's going to be honest. And that's all that I believe that guys can ask for. So moving on, I guess a lot of talk around the coaching staff and making this move to bring in an Eric Bieniemy. I mean, that's a huge step to be able to do that. New ownership coming in. Is this a make or break season for Ron Rivera?
I believe it is. I believe it is. It's a season that's going to determine Ron Rivera's future with the club. When you go back to his previous experience with the Carolina Panthers and David Tepper coming in as the new owner, not only did Ron Rivera get that whole first year with David Tepper, he actually got the next year with him as well. And then David Tepper kind of felt like he was on solid ground, knew where he wanted to go with his franchise, and decided to make a move at that point. And that's when Ron Rivera came to Washington. With Josh Harris, however, and with this group that's coming in, they have a sports ownership background, right? Josh Harris is also involved with the 76ers. He's also involved with the New Jersey Devils. Magic Johnson's involved with the Dodgers. And Magic is a minority owner, so I don't know how much of a say he's really going to have.
Right.
But he has some pull. And look, I mean, if he decides to go into the public space with some of his opinions about the coaching staff, that's certainly going to sway some things, right?
Sure.
But hopefully the dynamic within the ownership group isn't quite that way right off the bat. But, Josh Harris is going to be a guy who feels confident in his sports-making decisions when it comes to leadership. So if he feels like Ron Rivera isn't the guy to navigate his team forward for a number of reasons, right? It could be win-loss related. It could be public relations related. It could be a lot of different things. Then he's not going to hesitate to make a move. So Ron Rivera really, when we say make or break, the tough question that I get from a lot of Commanders fans is how many wins? And that I don't know is really the issue, right? I think wins certainly matter. I think maybe there's a floor, of wins, but the floor for how many wins the Commanders have to have for Ron Rivera to keep his job with the new ownership group may not be as high as a lot of people think it is. I think Josh Harris, just looking at his history with the process in Philadelphia, I know a lot of people will say that the process, quote unquote, with the 76ers didn't work, but actually the process did exactly what it was designed to do. What the 76ers set out to do was take a couple of bruised years, right? And then basically cleared negative cap space and stockpile young talent. They did that. They didn't win him a championship, but they did what they set out to do. Josh Harris was an owner who believed in that process and allowed his leadership to take it to its end. Once it got to a point where it's okay, now we got to sign Joel Embiid. Now we got to take on bigger contracts. We can no longer rely on this young player, low contract system. Now we need to move forward. And that's when they made the sweep. So if Ron Rivera and Jason Wright and the coaches and Martin Mayhew, the general manager, can show Josh Harris and the other owners that they have a plan ahead, they have a road, and Josh Harris believes that road is the right way to go, they can definitely keep their job and not necessarily blow the roof off the NFC East, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. And I love the point that you brought up about the process in Philadelphia. You're 100% correct. A lot of people bag on it and say that, oh, it didn't work. They were terrible. Well, yeah, they were terrible, but it did work. Just because you didn't win a championship, I mean, Philadelphia was far and away better than what they were previously. So hopefully that path for Ron Rivera, he's got a path, maybe not sinking to those depths, but hopefully he's got a path to get them over the hump because they're not that far away. The roster is still really good, in my opinion. I think it's maybe a top 10, top 15, and probably a little better than a top 15 roster. Is that kind of the same or what fans are thinking out there as far as this roster goes?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the defense alone, this defense was the 13th scoring defense in the National Football League, and I'm actually getting ready today. The episode that I'm going to be recording here on Wednesday is actually about just how close the Washington Commanders defense is to being along with like the San Francisco 49ers defense, the units that are considered to be the elite units in the NFL today, and how far off they are. And I'll tell you a little bit of a spoiler: they're not that far off. There's a lot of numbers I'm going to get into in my episode, but they're not that far off. Now, at the end of the day, though, you watch the San Francisco 49ers, and sometimes a great defense isn't enough. They haven't won a Super Bowl. They haven't won a championship because their offense has oftentimes sputtered. Last year, you can look at the rash of quarterback injuries that they went through and say that's why the offense sputtered. But this year, they're obviously going to hope to fix that. So when you look at the Commanders, they're kind of in the same situation. They don't have a Christian McCaffrey, but they got Brian Robinson Jr. and Antonio Gibson that are a very solid running back duo looking to take a step forward and do some more good things this year. They don't have Deebo Samuel, who a lot of people have over Terry McLaurin. Personally, I actually take Terry McLaurin over Deebo Samuel, but they're also different style of players, so it's kind of an apples to oranges comparison, just in the same orchard, right? But then when you add Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, and even some of the other players, I think Marcus Kemp is kind of a sleeper guy, not for your fantasy roster, but for making an impact on the Commanders roster. And then De'Ami Brown in his third year could certainly take another step forward. And I think that when you look at the Niners tight end group, right, George Kittle, no argument, one of the best in the league. But you look at the group and the depth, I think the Commanders might have a little bit more depth there. So really the differentiator for both teams, when we just compare the Niners and Commanders, because that's what I'm doing on my episode, is the quarterback position, right? And if you get above average play at the quarterback position for either team, then you're a threat. If you get average, you're a challenger. If you get below average, you're going to be on the bubble. And that's where the Commanders have been. The Niners have been in multiple parts of that phase or that situation. And both teams are hoping they have young quarterbacks that are going to help them get to that upper echelon this year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just don't feel like they're that far away. I've always said that they have a really, really good roster. Flipping the script here a little bit before I let you go. New ownership. You brought that up a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. Are the fans kind of feeling a breath of fresh air with this new ownership that's going on? I mean, Daniel Snyder, a lot of years, not a lot of success. I felt like I've been to a couple of games there. That stadium, you got to get another one, which I think they're doing. Mm-hmm. But it's just, it doesn't feel like the fans are as truly invested as what they were 10 years ago. Is the new ownership fresh? Are they feeling that now?
I will tell you, the fan base is as invested as it's ever been. What they're not doing is investing their hard-earned money in the product, right? That's what they're not doing. But I can tell you right now, from my listenership, from my viewership, from my readership, the fans are there. The fans want to know what's happening. They're interested in what's happening. And some of them, look, they're frustrated, right? So they say, I'm giving up on this team. But guess what? I see a lot of comments on my YouTube site where it's, I'm done with this team. This is why I can't follow this team. This is why I can't be a fan anymore. And I see those same people commenting 1 month, 2 months later on another video somewhere else because they are fans. You know what I mean? Being a fan, a lot of times it's ingrained in who you are. A lot of times there's ties to your youth. There's ties to family traditions. It's not something you can just kind of drop and pick up like a hat or something like that. It's just kind of who you are. So the fans are certainly still there. The Washington Commanders have a very dedicated fan base, a very rich fan base. But what they're not willing to do is pour money, pour resources into this team because they're not getting a return on their investment, not just on the field, but also in terms of respect from the ownership. The stadium itself, FedEx Field has a lot to be left to be desired. It's not one of these new age, high tech type of atmospheres. But honestly, most football fan bases, do you go to the games and see the fancy 4K board to get the best food in your local area? Or do you go there to watch good football? If you had good football, they would go. If you had an organization that gave you good pregame entertainment, halftime entertainment, reasons to show up, then they would go. And even something as simple as giveaways. It sounds a little bit, shallow, right? But you go to like the Dallas Cowboys stadium and you see every single fan getting a rally towel, and then they get so much, they get like a discount on food when there's a touchdown or some craziness. Like the Dallas Cowboys, who arguably have the best attendance and all that stuff year in, year out, no matter how they do, they're doing more for their fan base from an ownership standpoint than the Washington Commanders fan base is. I think Josh Harris, that's something that he's keenly tuned into. And if you look at the document that ESPN got their hands on when he was trying to recruit minority owners into the investment group, that's something he talked about very early on in that document, was reconnecting as a franchise with the fan base. So as soon as the sale goes through, which will hopefully happen here in about a week's time, I expect there to be fan events. I expect there to be pregame presence for the ownership. Magic Johnson is obviously going to be a huge pull that they're probably going to use to leverage and have him do some pregame speeches or some halftime speeches, things like that. And they're going to make all the efforts in the world. And there will be a new stadium. And honestly, even Dan Snyder, for everything that he's not, he was also trying to work on getting a new stadium for the team before he finally agreed and realized that he had to sell the team. So one way or another, they're getting a new stadium. It's just a matter of when. But in the meantime, you're going to have FedEx Field till at least the 2027 NFL season. So they have to make the best with what they've got right now. And there are ways to do that without just having to say, well, we'll just wait till we have a new building, because the building itself is only the it's the container. It's everything that happens inside the container that matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, right before I let you go here, I know it's early. It's before the season, before even preseason and all that good stuff. However, I'm asking everybody, record-wise, I just think the Washington is going to be better than the Giants this year. I actually think that they were better than the Giants last year. I mean, they tied. Then they had that bogus, what was it, the penalty at the end of the game. I mean, that was just absolutely insane. I'm like, come on, man, what are we doing here? So I think they're better. I think they're going to take that step and get above the Giants. Is that going to be enough to get in the playoffs? I don't know. It might be. The NFC's not that great. So I see them at least going 9-8 this year. What do you think record-wise? And again, I know it's really, really early.
Yeah, I think 9 wins is a reasonable target to shoot for, and it would be Ron Rivera's first winning season in Washington. And surprisingly enough, actually, honestly, for his reputation, Ron Rivera doesn't have a lot of winning seasons as an NFL
Right.
head coach, but it would certainly be a step in the right direction. The wild card is going to be the quarterback position, but I
Yep.
think that even if let's say Sam Howell comes out the gate and they start 1-3 or something like that, he's got a lot of interceptions or mistakes, and you switch over to Jacoby Brissett. I think the good thing about a guy like Jacoby Brissett is that he is a steadying presence. He's a veteran quarterback that you kind of know what you're going to get out of him. He's not going to be a hero, but again, nobody in this franchise right now is expecting the quarterback position to be the hero. So if Sam can't get that job done, then Jacoby can certainly come in and be a stabilizing presence. So I think 9 wins is certainly possible. I agree with you. They're better than the New York Giants. And, something that I've been kind of throwing around as my own personal hot take that not a lot of people agree with is I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are going to be as good this year as a lot of people are tallying them up to be. I'm not saying that I would
Okay.
have the Commanders over the Cowboys just yet. But when you look at the state of the NFC South, the NFC North specifically, you're probably looking at one team coming out of each of those divisions. We'll see how the Seattle Seahawks do. The Los Angeles Rams and Arizona Cardinals are not expected to do much. So really, it's between the Niners, the Eagles, whoever wins the North and the South. And then the wild card teams are going to come from either the NFC East completely, or you're going to get one out of the NFC West if one of those teams can steal a spot.
Well, I mean, it's music to my ears talking about the Dallas Cowboys. I'm here in Dallas as a Steelers diehard fan, and I absolutely love making fun of the Cowboys. So
Yeah.
a lot of people around here are just thinking they're going to win the Super Bowl. So it is what it is. They say the same thing every year. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, David, man. I appreciate you giving me the time today. If you ever have opportunity or time in the future, we would love to have you back. Thank you for making time for us.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.